Hello and welcome today's video. I hope you can see me okay in the dark. In fact, I've just put a light on, which I'm going to see if it works any better if I turn it off. And oh, that's not much better, is it? We'll try it like this and see if that's any better. Maybe that's the best thing to do. I've been doing videos on van life now since 2012, and this is the first time ever I've had to do a video on something which is a very sad story. In fact, I was thinking of doing it at the time of the events themselves. In fact, I did actually film something myself speaking into the camera. I didn't publish it because I thought it was a bit maybe accusatory or wrong to actually do something of this nature given the subject matter. But now I think it's possibly after 2 years, this is the right time. To give you a little bit of background, Gabby Petito was a 22-year-old lady from New York. She went, had a boyfriend, Brian Laundry, and they went on a van life trip across America. He murdered her, and then he committed suicide. So that is a very quick summary for those who don't actually know what happened. Now, if you go on the internet, you'll find all sorts of commentaries. There are psychologists, clinical psychologists, social workers who deal with crimes against women. You've got prosecutors, defendants, all sorts of other legal experts. But as far as I'm aware, this is the first time that somebody's actually done this from the motorhome point of view, the camper point of view. And I believe that what we can see in this relationship is something which should be a warning for everyone who's pursuing this dream. Now, people who watch this channel are on this channel because they want to pursue the dream of van life, I think. And many people here have their own vehicles, they're traveling themselves. Others would like to travel themselves. They'd like to maybe see a little bit about what it's like. Maybe they'd like to even try it themselves. The overwhelming majority of people on this channel are over 45, and this in a significant amount of people are over 55. So this is not a channel which is watched by younger people on the whole. But it may actually, some of the lessons here could not only affect us, those of us who are older, but also our children. The couple that went away, so they'd saved up for this for a couple of years. Gabby had worked on a juice bar. She'd worked also with, she's worked as a nutritionist. She gave up the job and for them to travel across the United States. She'd been living with him, Brian, and his parents in Florida before they went up to New York to see her family, and then they headed east, in a very small van. And what I'm going to deal with is the circumstances which they were living in, because I think, to my way of thinking, this is the most important thing of all. The vehicle that they were traveling in was a Ford Transit Connect. So that's not, I would say Ford Transit, you think of the bigger ones that makes a proper camper van out of. This is it's a minivan. It's a car, effectively. It comes into the car category. It's what more got the footprint of a car. Now, in the photographs of it, I can't tell if it's a short wheelbase or if it's the long wheelbase. The short wheelbase version is 428, I think, centimeters long, and the long wheel is 458 centimeters, something like that. It's 169 centimeters in width. And now the reason I'm telling you this is so we can see what their living conditions were. Furthermore, it's not a high vehicle. In the loading compartment at the back, I doubt that there's more than 120 centimeters of space. That is to say, in the habitation area where they were, there cannot have been more than 4 square meters or 5 cubic meters. Now, I live in a motorhome here. My motorhome 649 by 226, and if I include the height of it, it gives me almost around 30 cubic meters of space in here. And so there's, if in a case, for example, imagine the situation I'm in, that I'm with somebody, we're arguing, and it's pouring with rain outside. What happens? Well, there's a couple of things that can happen. That I'll stay here where I am now in the lounge, and the other person, my partner, she could go and sit at the back, and therefore we are separated. And so that, I think, is a thing which couldn't actually happen in this. Now, Gabby posted things on Instagram and on YouTube, and we can see the van in what she did at the back, so that she made it the living quarters, if you like, if that's even the right word for it, the habitation area. She made a bed, but another thing we see, it's decorated, and it looks very attractive. It looks very, very neat. But bear in mind how much capacity that had to actually carry anything. Now, camping is relatively easy when you've got all this luxury that I'm actually surrounded by. I've got water, I've got hot water if I want it, I've got storage, I've got I've got about 70 pairs of 70 shirts in here, for example. I've got all this. But in their case, they are in a tiny area with very limited amount of space possible to carry extra stuff, and they're going into the desert in summer without water. Now this without water, I say, because in one of the videos we see with the police, when the police stop them, what's called the helmet video, or whatever it is, the body armor video of the police, and you hear that he says that he had to go to a certain place to get 5 gallons of water. 5 gallons, 5 US gallons is about what, 18 liters of water. So I mean, in this vehicle I am in now, I'm carrying 120 liters, and if I were going into a desert, I would have in spare drinking water, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 liters of it. So we've got, therefore, a next problem. You've got the stress which they're under because of their surroundings. Now, the next thing I think you've got to bear in mind is how they're actually washing and things of this nature. That is going to be supremely difficult. Now, but one thing we do know from what Gabby said to the police when she was stopped in Moab was that she suffers from compulsive disorder, compulsive obsessional COD or CDO or whatever it is. So she has a compulsion to keep things clean and neat. And okay, now that's absolutely great. In fact, it's absolutely essential in a vehicle of that nature. But if there's 2 of them, it does depend on the other person also keeping along with it. He has to play along, and even if he's not going to be the one doing the tidying up and all the rest of it, he has to help out. Now, what we do know of Brian is that he was a rather domineering character. For example, he also seems to have been very jealous. It was one of Gabby's friends said that she invited her out to go drinking somewhere, and Brian took her driving license so she couldn't prove her age, so she couldn't get into the club. That was a way of controlling what she did. So he was already trying to control her. Now, in the dash cam we see when they were stopped, you see Gabby, who's in tears, and Brian, who's extremely calm and extremely polite with the police. But people had phoned in, they'd seen him hit her, seen them fighting. In fact, as he was driving, she appears to have pulled his arm or hit him or something extremely serious, which you don't do when somebody's driving. But if somebody actually hits a driver, that to my way of thinking, they're now out of their mind. Maybe it's not the right way of putting it, but they've lost control of what they want to do. But as I see this case, it is the following: is that in that tiny space, there was no escape. That is to say, not only no escape to get a break from the other person, a break from the idea that the other person's getting on your nerves, but also when he eventually did kill her, there was no way to get out of the van, and that I see is the reason. Now, what lessons can we actually get out of it as van lifers, as people who go mainly as couples? Is the following. The first thing is you're enclosed in a very small space, and even though they did actually have a tent as well, which they did set up, so they could have used that on extra time, but we are in this space, and we must really get on very well with the person that we're with. Otherwise, this is not going to work. And as it's not like when you're being married and one of you goes to work and the other one looks after the kids, or you both go to work. You only really see each other in the evenings and maybe when you get up, and then you have a few days together from time to time. In this case, you are together 24 hours a day. Now, I have spoken to, I don't know how many, lots and lots of people. I've been in a van now for 12 years. And I do speak about these things with people and say, how do you manage? How do you get on together? What's happening in your lives? And this occasionally comes up. Oh yeah, we do things occasionally. We do things differently, but not often. But bear in mind that this is when you get to like my age, you're far more tolerant, in my opinion. I mean, I've heard people say you get more set in your ways, but I think you get more tolerant with age. And it's when you're younger that you're totally intolerant to people. I'd like to actually recount a story that somebody told me, but it's not as bad as the story that obviously nobody was killed, but somebody got very abusive in the vehicle. I once personally did have a situation. This was a caravan, and the lady, she got very emotional, and she put her arms around me, and I was quite embarrassed about it because I didn't want her partner coming back. And she wanted, she was asking about getting trains, going back to her parents. How do I get there? This, that, and the other. And anyway, they went off together. I know they're still together because I see them. So no harm, long-term harm was done. Not only that, I didn't even understand what exactly they were up to. So I mean, but now we're at a situation where the parents of Gabby, they're suing the parents of the Brian, because they believe that Brian told them, and then they didn't. The parents didn't tell them. I cannot see under any grounds how that's going to actually work out. And they're also suing the police department in Moab, who didn't actually. They claim didn't do anything to stop them. I'll just fill in a little detail here that on this trip, Brian returned to Florida because he had to clean out a warehouse or a storage box or something. And so she, in the meantime, she waited for him somewhere out west in a hotel. No, she didn't go back to the van. She went to a hotel. And then he came back, and it seems that they were fighting most of the time. A member of the public said that he'd seen them fighting. The police stopped them. You can see the entire police interview has been uploaded, and you can see the state she's in, but she's initially protecting him, which I understand is a typical reaction for a battered woman. And any things I can't make comments on behavior because I haven't studied these things. I don't know, and there's people who do know them, and there's plenty of videos on the internet about them. But I blame I blame, first of all, blame the vehicle. It's not the vehicle's fault as such, but given the circumstances, rather than the parents of Gabby trying to blame others, maybe they ought to look at what they did wrong. And I appreciate you can't stop a 22-year-old going off and doing whatever they want. So, I mean, I don't know, but I just don't think it's right for them. So, but I understand. I mean, if I'd lost my daughter, I'd probably be blaming all and sundry as well. Anyway, good. So what I'd like to do is I'll have a look at some of your comments, and because I'm sure there's people who've got some really valid things to say. So Jens says she was murdered by her narcissistic boyfriend. I really hope you are not going to make it her fault. Well, yeah, Jens must have written that beforehand. How can it be her fault? Okay. Obviously, if somebody's narcissistic and the other person doesn't do everything that narcissistic person wants, then is that the victim's fault? Anyway, I don't know. And anyway, Mobil says, I don't know much about the case, just the overview. Her boyfriend was very abusive, basically a nutter, and his parents covered up for him. Yeah, it does look as though his parents covered. It looks that way. I mean, it hasn't been proven. So I mean, but for his parents, bear in mind that this girl had lived with them for a couple of years. So, but I mean, the reaction of the parents, I can't explain it. I mean, I have no words. I really don't know. Hello, Nathaniel. Hello, Annie. Hello, Meebus. Hello, Annika, Andrew, Clive. Yeah, so Clive writes, the Ford Connect is a tiny van. It really is tiny. I mean, last night I was thinking about it because I think I decided I was going to do this, and in my bed in the back, I thought, you know what, this bed is the size of the back of that van, more or less, and the height, the clearance I've got in the bedroom in the back of this van is somewhat similar, and that was a thought that went through my mind. Here at the back, it'd be what, about, it's 226 on the outside, so it's going to be about what, 210, something like that, which 2 centimeters. That's approximately what they would have had as well. And anyway, okay, Taurus says the type of car RV they had is asking for trouble. Any two people will get in an issue long term in a car like that. Yeah. I honestly cannot. I think of myself as being a very easygoing, placid type of person. I'm pretty certain in a vehicle like that, I would get annoyed with somebody. I mean, it's the person's there all the time, but add to that the difficulties of the environment. That is what is. I mean, Gabby in a social media post is always super. She's super media, whatever the word is. She's super effusive. She's really keen. She says, "I love the van." And when you look at it in the back, you can see how well she's done it up. It really is very rare to see a vehicle done up as well as she's done it up. You know, I do see people in tiny vehicles. I mean, I had only a couple of days ago, I had my neighbors. They'd done up something. Well, I mean, it was bigger. It was a proper. Well, sorry, it was a van. It was. I can't remember what it was now. But it had a low roof. It was something like the Ford Custom, Ford Transit Custom, but it wasn't. But it was something along those lines. And I mean, I said to them, you know, at the time, so well, they'd be out on the bike ride, and they were soaking wet, and I said, well, why don't you come in here? You can use I can make you a hot shower, things like that, to give assistance. You know, if you're in a situation like that where effectively you do need assistance because it's not a van conversion of that size, you're incredibly limited to what you can actually do in there. And as far as I can see as well, I think maybe at the back there were windows, but they didn't have any windows in the side or on the roof. And imagine the heat in that thing at night in the desert in summer. I don't know if they put insulation into it, but I can tell you this, having attempted to sleep in something like that, which is it's very difficult, and it's not something I think you can do from living in a normal house with air conditioning and lots of space around you. Then suddenly you're in this metal box, a small metal box, and absolutely roasting, unless of course they left the doors open, which is something I don't think I would recommend in that environment. Right, and right, sorry. And C says, such a sad outcome. One never knows what another person's going through. Have a good week, everyone. Yeah, so it is this, isn't it? There is the presentation for the internet, which is normal. You know, all of us know people who are outwardly very happy and inwardly not. We all know people like that. And when it comes that they get divorced and it's such a shock, it is, you know, it's unpleasant. And we all know the situation where you've got somebody you like, and that person's with somebody who's no good, who's wrong, who's bad, but you don't know how to tell them. And that, of course, I think was been the problem of the parents. So I blame him. I think he manipulated his way to get Gabby away from her support network. He certainly did. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And that also something. She was ringing her parents once every other day. And then when she stopped ringing, well, the parents said, well, maybe she's in the mountains. There's no service there. I noticed this. Okay, maybe it's better now since I was last in the United States. But the United States is not. It's not like here, where you get service everywhere. The internet at least when I was there last, it certainly wasn't comparable to what we have here. And Annika says, please no victim blaming. I hope I'm not. Okay, here's a good question. Is van life best alone or with a dog? Says vegan. It's best with a dog, but you know, if that's a question aimed at me, I can't replace. You know, if my wife died, I wouldn't sort of start. I think I'll get another one now. And so, yeah, no, I think it's best with a dog. You can always talk to the dog. Mind you, dogs can be. I think dogs are just trying to get their best out of you, and you know they just use dogs just use you, but you think the dog loves you, but the dog really just wants you to do everything for it. Anyway, have I been doing van life? Have you been doing van life solo? Asks Andrew. Yeah, most of the time I've done this by myself. Yeah, I have had situations though when I was with somebody and there was a disagreement. So there's one woman I didn't like the way she voted in the general election in Poland, and that really wound me up. And that caused all sorts of problems. Maybe she didn't understand the depth of my feelings on something like this, and she could have just lied, and it wouldn't have made any difference. But for me, this was like a dreadful betrayal. And yeah, but there have been, I can say, yeah, I have had there have been these tension moments. And even I would say the worst tension actually was not so much in the van. It was somebody I was with before I had a van, sort of traveling around in a vehicle similar to this one, in the car. And there were it was a person I was then with, but then again she didn't sort of share my ideology, my what I wanted to do. And I think this is the problem, because I had a friend, and he said to me very sad, he said, my wife's dreams aren't the same as mine. No, they bought the van. He was 72. I think she was the same age. So, but he was super fit, really tough. And so it it's this is part of the problem. I mean, I've talked about this in the past, is that one wants to do it and the other one doesn't. In a case like this, Gabby clearly wanted to do it, and she was really into it. That's clear. Maybe she wanted to be a social media star, which of course she did become, unfortunately, after her death. But it's with him, it's not so clear. But I don't know one way or the other in his case. But I mean, the fact is, after killing her, he sort of dumped the body some 300 meters from the van, and then he drove back home without her. I mean, what did he tell his parents? Then when he went into a nature area, so I presume it's like a swamp area in Florida, hiking, while his girlfriend's missing. It's just it's just totally bizarre. Anyway, sometimes one has to choose a sane life, well, and yeah. Oh, and Nathaniel says he's not going to get married. If in a relationship, probably best in separate vans. You know what, Andrew? I had somebody here, a viewer, and she said this to me. So they wanted to get a van, his and her vans. They were going to travel together, but they were going to have separate vans. And this is the only time I have ever heard this, anybody ever do it. So this is the second person to actually say this, and I just don't think that's practical, though. I brought somebody to my van a couple of months ago, and she said that the first thing she said when she got in was, "This looks great for one person and a dog," and admittedly, yeah, okay, maybe it's not huge. The part of the thing is that often get this question asked to me: isn't it too small? My answer is this: it isn't too small, because I can see out the window and open the door, and to quote the Park for Night slogan, "The world is my garden," and that's how I feel it. So the living area, how much space do you really need? That's number one question. And the second thing, you've got all this great outdoors. Having said that, if somebody thinks they're not too bothered with what's outdoors and they need a big living area inside, then I understand. But it's horses for courses, and it's something for everyone. And I think that is the way I feel about it. And if this couple could have managed now, if they'd had a van like I have, this one here, then which even by American standards, this is a really small vehicle, then this, I suspect, mightn't have happened, because they could have got the space between them, which they didn't have. Separate. Oh, Meebus likes the idea as well. Nanny thinks the same idea. Right, that. Sorry. So that's something that might actually catch on. I'm glad I didn't do this before. Actually, I'm glad that 2 years ago what I said, because I mean I appreciate the chance of anybody in the family seeing it is highly unlikely, but this may be somewhat critical. I appreciate that the parents, her parents, her mother, the parents are divorced, but her mother said in an interview that, oh yeah, of course she was very worried about her and all the rest of it. Okay, I suppose who wouldn't be, even if she is 22? I mean, Gabby has something, and there is I think it's called the white woman syndrome, something like that, when she was highly media attractive. So she looks really nice. She looks like the girl next door. She looks like the daughter you'd like to have. She has this wonderful aura about her and smile, and it's been put forward that, okay, what if You know, there's about something like 900 Native Americans, for example, go missing, and nobody cares less about them. And so, I mean, question to me: would I have done this video if the person had been a Native American? And I said yes, I would, because the answers are exactly the same. Would I have done this video if the been a Native American homosexual couple? Yes, I would, because the answers are the same. Would I have done it if it had been a Native American homosexual couple, but it didn't happen in a van? The answer is no, because it's the van life, the idea of chasing the outdoors, which has caused this to happen in pursuing of one's dreams. I would like to no, I wouldn't like to say, it's put me in a difficult situation. So my train of thought. All right, I'll say what's going. I'd like to say to people, put down your negative opinions below. But in the end of the day, negative things have happened to you below. But that maybe isn't maybe the place and the circumstances. I really do feel sorry for people with who are with someone who's totally narcissistic in this manner, in controlling. I mean, it is difficult to understand why somebody wants to be with someone who just wants to, in a relationship, who just wants to control them. I can't answer that one. I don't know. I mean, sometimes there are people who actually benefit in some way. Okay, there's a certain politician whose wife has stayed, who's totally narcissistic, but his wife stays with him for all the obvious financial benefits. But why do people in Gabby's case stay with him? Maybe it's the case because the love is blind, but maybe the other person isn't. And that's really, I suppose, all I can think of in this case. Okay, thanks for watching anyway. So if you've got any opinions, do put them down below. I hope I won't have to come back to anything like this again. To me, it was a news item which I really thought I should cover, and I'm glad I did cover it. The Annie says, I would like to have the experience of sharing with someone that respects the other person. Yes, that's absolutely right. I met someone last year, and I said to her, so I was quite happy to live in her house, and she said, no, I'd rather live in yours. And that I mean, that's the sort of thing one wants to hear. So that is my warning to everybody, is to, before anybody goes off on any van life experiences. It could be here in Europe, it could be in the United States, but let's face it, if you're going to drive from, let's say, from New York to Los Angeles, that's a very long way. And if I were driving, that would take me 2 or 3 years to do. Here in Europe as well, the idea of doing longer trips. So if there's one piece of advice that might work, if you're going to do something like this, if your children are going to do something like this, then keep it short. Do a couple of weeks, do a month, don't do any more. I think actually, if you're with somebody for a month and you haven't started arguing, then in a tiny environment, then probably you are made for each other. So thanks very much, and I'll go back to doing, there'll be a vehicle up tomorrow. I think it's I can't remember what it is now. I think it's a Leica, but so slightly different, going back to the usual thing tomorrow. Thank you very much. Okay, bye for now. Bye.